So is there any way to stop this? Well, perhaps. What's their Achilles heel? What is the weakness? Well, we hear from the mouths of those pushing forest biomass that private land feedstocks are spoken for, and for the biomass industry to really take off, they need federal lands, National Forest BLM lands. It's a quote right there from one of them. Another quote from another one of them. So it's pretty clear that public lands are going to make or break the forest biomass industry in the long term. This is why environmentalists or folks who are concerned about biomass really need to be sure entire forest ecosystems and watersheds are protected, not just the largest trees and islands of old growth. So they're fanning the flames of wildfire hysteria to scare people into supporting backcountry logging under the guise of fuels reduction. And what they're really doing is they're putting the American people at risk by convincing them that this logging will protect them and lying to them that the waste will be carbon neutral, all that stuff. So they've been asking government agencies and politicians to help them instill this sense of urgency. That's straight up what they're saying. And the Forest Service is like, yeah, sure, okay. And we need to cut in 180 million acres of federal lands, and it's our top priority to do this kind of stuff. So Forest Service is all over this stuff. So they keep tricking us, I guess, or some of us. They've been doing this HFRA stuff for almost the past decade with the cherry picking in the backcountry, and how many times are they going to fool us? And there's Senator Wyden, an artist rendition of Senator Wyden. He is, again, one of the folks he pushed forward it back in the day, and he seems to think it's a great thing. And he currently has a bill introduced into the Senate, S-536. As it says, it would amend the Clean Air Act to classify forest biomass from federal lands as renewable energy. Unfortunately, what that's going to do is take money away from wind power, so that's quite unfortunate. And he has some other legislation that isn't so hot either, which other folks have brought up other times. I can't think of a better analogy for forest biomass than the Greek legend that maybe some of you are familiar with, Pandora's box, where Zeus gives a box to Pandora. I don't know who Pandora is, and telling her not to open the box, but she does. And then all the woes of the world, and maybe biomass isn't that bad, but that's what it makes me think about. And that's the GAO there saying excessive thinning, it might happen. But all right, let's talk about even if it weren't excessive thinning in native forests. Thinning, despite its benign-sounding name, it's not just a walk in the park. And here's some excerpts from Jonathan Rhodes' Watershed Impacts to Forest Treatments. You can check out the full report on eco-advocates.org. Click on Wildfire Forest Biomass. Basically, it talks about more thinning is going to create lots of use of more roads, which are the main source of erosion, compaction, and the most important thing, soil damage from intensive thinning is likely to be as great or greater than that from conventional logging. That's an important point because it's over such vast scale. And what about those homes, right? Well, the Forest Service has kind of shown that they're more interested in exploiting the fear of fire than they are actually doing anything about it. And I maintain that this HFRA stuff, backcountry logging for fire, it distracts people into thinking that it's a false sense of security. So they're actually being distracted. They're not doing the things that would actually matter, and I think that's just awful. Instead of spending hundreds of millions of dollars, taxpayer money subsidizing fraudulent HFRA logging, let's direct that money towards making sure folks' homes are fire safe, and let's put people to work in the woods pulling out those eroding logging roads, which are actually a main spread of fire, which I believe George will get into more tonight. And there's some of the negative aspects of having all those roads out there. After we put folks to work doing real restoration in the woods, let's enact genuine and lasting measures to protect and preserve our national forests, to prevent any more plunder for the purpose of carbon storage, water quality, maintenance of regional climate, hunting, fishing, recreation. Now would be the time to push forward good legislation, which isn't what Wyden and DeFazio have. And one of the good models is Save America's Forest Act, and you can check out more about that, saveamericasforest.org. And home stretch here. Aside from protection and preservation, we need to encourage responsible selective forestry, which largely means no clear cuts or pesticides on private lands. The model that Eco Advocates endorses is Orville Camp's natural selection ecostry, which involves removing some of the trees from a forest as they die. Campforest.com is a work in progress. We have some brochures in the back. but we still need to be addressing their competition, which are folks like Allen Ford, Roseburg Forest Products, the toxic clear cutters, stumpquebank.com. More on that. And yeah, that's all I got. And thanks.